Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 77 of Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Chris. Chris, how have you been?
Pretty good. Coming in high definition today. So
yes, yeah, it looks great, that new camera.
Looking pretty good, yeah. You know, stepping up a little bit for our audio listeners. Oh, wait.
We're doing some little improvements because we're definitely going to be doing more content. We're certainly thinking about doing a live stream. I was just on another episode with shout out to Miguel and P. Ross over at SoCal Watch Reviews. So I was on their podcast. Check theirs out. They've had some great guests on recently. Adrian at Bark and Jack and a few others.
Yeah, I felt my my video game. I had the old webcam. I felt a little 2019. So time to step it up a little bit. It's all good.
The last upload we did was about Tudor, but we were kindly joined by Justin, who was a Rolex AD. But the time before that, chronology-wise, for us we talked about the Timepiece Gentlemen. Now, some of you might be coming back to see, I think, our opinions on that, because in that last week to 10 days, Chris, a lot happened, didn't it?
Yeah, it was busy in the Reddit watches drama section of the news.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, we kind of called it, didn't we, in our last show? We called what would happen, because at that time we made the show, there was still a lot of speculation about, did they run off with the money?
Yeah.
It was still, there was still this criminal element to it, but I think both you and I agreed that this would be not a very clever crime to have committed.
I have to give it to you, Sam. You definitely, you kind of you sort of early defended that and said this is just publicity. Nobody's run off with money, that sort of thing. And you had the correct take. You convinced me as that show went on, and here we are. And we'll do a quick follow up.
Yeah, we'll do a quick follow up. I know some people, especially if you've been following it, there's been a ton of content. As always, our shows are chaptered. So if you want to skip this bit, we're going to get it out of the way at the start. Just a brief update on what happened, and then we're going to go into a few news stories. So just use the chapter markers at the bottom in the description if you're wanting to skip this, if you've heard enough about the Timepiece Gentlemen. We're also going to talk about Jody and Just One More Watch as well earlier on in the show, because a lot happened there. There was like more watch drama the last 2 weeks, wasn't there, Chris, than what in the last 3 years?
Yeah, I know. I feel like we're sort of creating. I think, the community has been creating the show for at least the last 3 weeks. So we'll touch on that, and then we'll get back to the regular stuff.
Long story short with the Timepiece Gentlemen, if anybody's not familiar, if you're still wondering, well, why was there all this drama? Long story short, Timepiece Gentlemen is a successful YouTube channel. They were also grey market dealers, dealing in high-end luxury watches, particular Rolex. They had a very successful Instagram account, which kind of started them off. And then what happened was they went dark for a week. They stopped responding to messages, phone calls, and a lot of people were speculating what had happened. There was a news story indicating that there might have been something nefarious, some criminal activity. They ran off with the watches. So everybody was concerned, well, is this criminal, back and forth? Anyway, after almost an exact week, they came back on with a video that wasn't quite an apology video. This was this is what we've been doing for the last week.
Explanation video, where they basically explained that it was a publicity stunt and get everybody talking, which they certainly did. But as we'll go here, it felt a little crass.
I think the premise was this was not only a publicity stunt, but they coined it as if it was a social experiment.
Right.
Well, this is what happens when you go dark. The internet is very quick to jump on you. And then they had this narrative around that what they've been doing is charity work, which is very honourable. Like any work that's done for a charity, any money that's raised for a charity. It came across in the upload, whether the intention was there or not, was, well, while you were all talking about us and speculating and trolling us, we were actually doing charity work. And I think the intention of the upload was totally lost because I don't know what your view on it was, Chris.
The first thing that popped into my mind was when you want to find out who your real friends are, so you divorce your wife and you leave your kids and you're like, you're a real friend. I mean, like, no one does that, but that's kind of the move here, that was just like, we're just going to leave you guys and we're going to see who our real people are, that kind of thing. And it's just this like, and it just makes everybody, it does the same thing. It just makes everybody uncomfortable. Do I have to go over to dad's house? Can I still call? I mean, like, is it going to get weird if I ask both of them to dinner? So.
Yeah, you make a great point there. That's how it came across. Whether the intention was there or not, that's exactly how it came across. And also the charity angle, it left some people feeling very weird about it. And there was a couple of weird things about it. They basically went to different charities during different days of the week. It seemed like that was an afterthought, that they realized that there was some I'm speculating here. They filmed a lot of things where they turned up to a charity. I'm paraphrasing this video because they took it down, which was also another thing that we need to talk about. But they went to a charity where the people that worked there were quite surprised that they were there, and they'd actually filmed that. Then they had a really awkward part in the video where Anthony was on the phone to his bank, and the bank had actually frozen the Gentlemen Timepieces account, and he was back and forth with him. And the narrative on the video led you to believe that somebody at the bank had watched this video and believed that there was some, or they'd seen it on the Dallas local news, and that's how the account had been shut down. But there's a guy who is a business analyst on, and just let me show you this, Chris. There's a YouTuber. I'm going to plug this guy for a second, Noel B. He does a accountancy channel, and he talked through he's a CPA, and he talked through everything that they shared on their channel about their business. He pointed out, as well as a couple of other YouTubers, Chris, is that a bank will not freeze your account based on something that's on social media, because who at the end of the day watches it?
I would be terrified if that was the case, because you could make some speculation, you could comment or whatever that, gets the internet all riled up, and then your banker's like, shut them off.
Chris, you run a business, don't you? So you've got business bank accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, and I don't, I mean, again, like they are, they're ready to help you, but like I feel like the connection there between anything that you did publicly, you'd have to really, I can't even imagine what I'd have to do publicly, short of, maybe this news story like this with lawyers and stuff. But again, someone would have to make the connection that like, oh, okay, this is this person, and they have an account. Like most banks don't care. I mean, yes, he probably has a bigger footprint, a much bigger footprint than I'm going to be putting into a bank. But even then, you talk about big banks where just millions of dollars coming and going, millions of companies and accounts and everything. Like I just don't see someone stopping and being like, oh wait, yeah, he has an account with us. It's very strange.
About the closing of the bank account. So say they did close the account. In the upload that the Timepiece Gentlemen had done, they made it appear that they needed it unfrozen as there was a wire transfer coming in from an investor. And a couple of YouTubers pointed out that, look, a bank might freeze your account, but they're not going to stop money coming in. They stop it going out.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of true.
So there was a couple of other missteps in that video. One thing that people pointed out, which I didn't really notice it, was he was wearing that Richard Mille the whole time. Okay, you're talking about this charity, you're wearing a watch on your wrist that could probably run a charity for a year.
Right.
I mean, or $200,000 is not that he should do. I mean, that's part of their business expenses. But it was one of those things where it was like, oh, we're gonna donate these watches and all of this and our time, but we've seen them spend $17,000 on a meal. They implied that the charity, they were trying to do some good with their social media, but they'd already proved this point because Darby, their videographer, who had a friend that was in dire need of a kidney transplant, I think, and needed money for medical expenses, people had already he had mobilized his fans and they'd raised a lot of money towards that. So he didn't need to do a stunt to get his viewers, which I'm one. I mean, full disclosure, you know, we've reached out to him a couple of times to ask him to come on for an interview. I was a fan of their a big fan of their channel. I watched every episode. Flamboyant thing. I just took that in its stride. So they could mobilize their followers already to do to do good for charity. They didn't have to do we went dark and you were all talking about us, and I'll bleep that bit out. You were all talking about us, another bleep, but we were doing this charity while you were all talking about us. We were doing charity. Right. So shame on you for not trusting us. But most of us did trust it. Chris and I, we never threw shade on them. In fact, we said, be careful whose grave you're pissing on, because if this is a publicity stunt, you know, Archie, Christmas for Archie Luxury.
That's right. Yeah.
Bringing it up to the current day, 3 things happened that were interesting. One, in that video, they made a big song and dance about how their comeback video was not, in fact, that one, but they were going to be on Producer Michael's channel. Producer Michael, obviously a huge content creator in the luxury space. And there was sort of rumors around, is Producer Michael one of their investors and so on. But then Producer Michael's, as soon as that video came out, he kind of disowned them, really. He said that they said everything they wanted to in that video. He obviously saw the like versus dislike ratio was crazy. So that was an interesting thing. So that kind of cut that avenue off. Then they were heavily praising Roman and Paul Thorpe. They were saying, we knew Roman had our back and all of this stuff. And Roman was not, he wasn't defending them. He was like, this is what I think. I've known them. They're on the level. This is what I think. Right. I'm waiting like everybody else in the one video that he did. But they made it sound like, we know Roman's proved to us that he's our friend. I don't know if you saw that.
Actually, I actually saw that one. Yeah, I did see the Roman video. You know, he was honest, and it, you know, he's like, I'm not going to shut these guys down or anything. You know, he's like, I'm not going to, you know, stop, you know. But he just, you know, he had that, felt embarrassed, right? And
Paul Thorpe as well, who was a big supporter of theirs. He's tried to help Anthony on a number of occasions, he was saying. But Paul Thorpe released a video saying that he was that it put him in a very difficult moral position, because he didn't agree with what they did, but they made it sound like in the video
that he was on board.
You can tell when Paul Thorpe is approaching a difficult subject, because those are the ones where he scripts them. So he's very careful about what he says. He doesn't freestyle those ones. I've always been a fan of Paul Thorpe. I think he needed to do this video, but you could tell he didn't want to do it.
So here we are right now with the final I'm sorry video.
Yeah, so what do you
think? A little apology
YouTube,
a little I mean, so it seems genuine. Unfortunately, YouTube being YouTube as a thing, as a network, as a medium, YouTube has a sort of apology video style already. Like, this is already a thing. So with the stunt and with the awkwardness, with the missteps with the charity, and with the missteps with other people, and like saying, you know, like, well, you know, we know who our friends are and these sorts of things, to then come out and apologize, you know, it does seem genuine. He says, I'm sorry a bunch of times, and kind of steps through it. But it's tough to come back. It's tough to undo what is done. So these guys are just going to have to lie low, or they're just going to have to do their show. And it's just going to have to be, you know, this, we want to be genuine and do this cool show and show you what the inside of, like, you know, expensive gray market watch dealer does every day, that sort of thing. I tend to feel like it's going to be kind of a Dennis Rodman, where there'll be something else next. And I don't want it to happen, but I feel like it's going to be the next, like what's the next drama going to happen? Like, can we outdo our drama the first time? So they just need to chill and put out great content for, you know, a while before they're going to see their viewers come back and sort of start to just let the past be the past.
I totally agree with you. I think he was genuine in that upload. He was constant eye contact. It wasn't scripted. He was obviously using very strong language when referring to himself. They kind of bit the hand that fed them. They built their brand on social media and from being open, and then they bit it to say, well, you guys are all spending too much time on social media. I believe he was genuine. I agree. They have to lay low now, and they just have to start making decent content. Probably never mention this again unless they're directly asked by it.
Yeah.
They just need to. It's not, they can't, I question whether they can come back from it, but I don't think that this is as egregious as Horology House, for example, where the guy at Horology House can never do a YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Again.
There's no apology that he could make. He stole from people. That is a completely different level. In this case, we have some missteps. We have some, who's your real friends, social drama. I get it. But yeah, it backfired, and you know, we talk about audience in watches, and we mention this many times where we're just, you know, we're talking about wristwatches. Well, it's such a small group of us. It's a tiny group of us. So to have 100,000 views on this like apology video, like, you know, it's you're not going to see the numbers of like some other crazy thing, like, you know, Sam and our, you know, pizza making channel, which we'll have to
that's how
start.
Thanks for all the feedback on my my throwaway comment. Me and Chris are currently looking for pizza oven premises.
Yeah.
I wish them all the best. I do worry whether they can come back from it. If I'm being totally honest, I worry whether they can come back from it. And not because of what the YouTubers think, because of the relationships that they had within the industry and the fact that my view is that they embarrassed a couple of their biggest supporters. I worry whether they can. If
I was a dealer and I had anything to do with social and YouTube, and they asked me to do a collaboration, I would definitely think twice, because I would be like, am I associating with something here? Not nothing nefarious, but just like, is it going to be inferred? Yeah, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, that was, if you're interested, if you're wanting to talk about this more, join us over on the Facebook group. We'll continue the conversation on there. Unless there's something monumental that happens, this will be the last video that Chris and I do. We might as well move over to another thing that was a lot more, I think, troubling, certainly for like creators, Chris, like you and I, was the Jody situation.
Yeah, so last week, Jody's channel, Just One More Watch, was wiped off YouTube and just completely not there. Video's not available, and this is terrifying for those of us that make and produce content for any platform, to just, because you get these platforms and they decide, and whether it's a copyright violation or somebody says something that the algorithm finds, or someone higher up just says this infringes something, so we're just going to take this off. So I saw the Instagram post where Jody was basically like showing your channel is gone YouTube, which is again terrifying, but and so then he sort of alluded in that post that he was like reported, or the actual reason why was for a copyright, not a copyright, was it a
counterfeit violation?
A counterfeit violation, right? So something was like counterfeit on his channel. Now, a couple days went by. I think it was only down for like 1.5 days, maybe. I think it was the next day. He got a hold of a bunch of YouTube, folks. He didn't have a direct contact with YouTube. And so through the community, again, the small community, like we know each other, we talk to each other. So it's like someone had contacted YouTube and got a hold of them. And then Jody had crafted a response. He was very smart about this, to not say, well, give this back to me because I deserve it, or anything like that.
Outrage. He wasn't outraged.
he was really smart to say, I think this is why this happened. Here is why it's not the case, and sort of build a case up. So many times, you'll see people get into these not necessarily legal, but like where decisions need to be made, and like they need data. They need to know why did this happen, and why do you think you didn't deserve this, or you did deserve, these sorts of things. So he drafted a response, and then, like I said, I think it was a day and a half later, his channel was back up, and I watched his whole "Hey, I'm back" video. And something, Sam, that you and I were we had speculated maybe that was, again, kind of dangerous territory, which is he had a couple of videos comparing the super fakes to the real watches. So I know he had a Rolex one that was pretty old, and then he had the current, I think he did that maybe 4 or 5 months ago, that Omega that he did. And he specifically called out in his "I'm Back" video those two. And I'm glad he called them out, because I completely agree that that's a situation where, you can say, professional driver on closed course, right? But if I have video of me doing 145 on the interstate from yesterday, some attorney, some state, prosecutor needs to arrest me, because that's like, you can't just say like, oh guys, like you shouldn't buy this because it's a fake, but also here's how amazing it is, and like this whole thing. So I'm really glad that he pointed this out.
This was one of those situations where we had inadvertently predicted it, because we were talking about another subject. So this was one of those things where it was one of those, we wish we hadn't been right about this, but our feeling, certainly mine was, and a big shout out to Ben from Ben's Watch Club, who actually alerted me to one of my videos that was I compared a fake Seiko against a real one. Seiko don't care. Right. But a couple of things that I want to point out about this is, this is somebody manually reporting Jody. This isn't YouTube. YouTube couldn't care less about watch YouTubers. We don't get it's Prime. You can see that because they don't promote some of the best channels. They don't know. It's an algorithm that's making a decision. Somebody is going in and manually reporting these YouTubers. It happened with the Time Teller. He had a couple of his videos removed, and there's a couple of other people that have gone. And the reason that YouTube is taking them down, I think to your earlier point, Chris, YouTube's thing is display of counterfeit items. They aren't morally making a judgment. They don't care what the intent is. So you can't say, well, I showed this fake so other people don't get fooled, or I showed this fake because it was so good. They don't make a moral judgment on the fact that you have shown a fake on the channel is what the issue is, not the intent. Right. So, yeah, I mean, Jody managed to rally some much bigger YouTubers who actually got a human, like you said, Chris, a human to make a judgment call on it. I'm guessing that Jody took these videos down. They were getting silly, these fake versus real videos, because I felt like, fake watches were always a bit tongue-in-cheek, weren't they? I mean, Chris and I grew up in the 80s. The amount of detective films that were in the 80s where somebody's like, oh, I've got a fake Rolex and it falls to bits. It was a joke.
The old raincoat trope with the fake watches.
100%. It was all a joke. Oh, a fake Rolex will just fall to bits and stuff like that. Now, you bring that up to modern days, and a YouTuber, their intentions, Jody's intentions were solid. He was saying, don't buy this. But then he's showing like, this is a Rolex that only an expert who has handled 1,000 of these would know that it's a fake.
Yeah, like that Omega video, he had that macro shot, like that's 1080p macro. It was all dial on my 40 plus inch television, and it was just like, and like at how, look at this style versus this style. And yeah, we've definitely said that. I've said it definitely, which is like, you see enough of that, and there's a little, there's a little demon in the back here. And you're like, hey, you could maybe pick one of those up. Like, how bad would it be? Like, no one would know. No one would know. And just don't go down that road. Just don't go down the road. Just it's because, and I think he handled it well, but it was definitely it was definitely a gut check of everybody out there who's making content like this.
Jody's making some great content. This is his livelihood at the moment. Probably going to get comments to the effect of, well, he was telling everyone how they shouldn't buy it, and how there is no moral judgment in terms of the YouTube's terms of services. The displaying of counterfeit items is what the issue is, not the intent of why you're showing it. And I think it's probably is a wake-up call for a lot of other, because that content did really well. It was a drama style content similar to what we've been talking about, Timepiece Gentlemen, really. So, but anyway, just wanted to clear up that bit of thing. We wish Jody luck. He's very invited on our channel. I reached out to him at the time. He replied back and thanked Chris and I for reaching out to him when his channel was down. We said, please come on and we'll help you rebuild if that's what you are. Luckily, his channel got reinstated. So
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
so those are the two bit of watch dramas. So let's dive into a bit more of the regular show. We've got a couple of news stories we want to talk about, but Chris, we haven't done a watch obsessions for ages. Well, let's do a watch obsessions, and then we'll do a quick hit or miss, shall we? And then we've got one or two stories after that.
So my watch obsession this week was my good friend Sam sent over the link to a Christopher Ward sale, and I fell into that website hard. And so total sideline, I popped a tire. I got a flat on my wife's electric car, and basically had to go to the, it was on the highway, slashed two tires. I think we talked about this, but so already hit the wallet for a full set of tires, and here I'm browsing. I'm yeah. So I had another look at that blue C65 chronograph with the blue and red subdial, and so good. But so my obsession was kind of everything on Christopher Ward. They've got every color. They've got a bunch of colors of the sapphires now that are great. They've got the compressor, the super compressor that we've talked about. That's great. I'm close. But yeah, definitely a good obsession for me this week.
Oh, absolutely. And I managed to snag a Christopher Ward. I won't talk about it yet.
Nice.
But I managed to get one, so it's being delivered tomorrow. But that sale they did, I would highly recommend, if you like the look of Christopher Ward, sign up to their mailing list. It's called the VIP list. There's no membership involved or VIP status. It's not because I run a YouTube channel that I got a VIP emails from them. Sign up for it, because not only do they send a voucher that is usually $125 off a watch, they do that incredible sale, but what they did is they emailed everyone on the VIP list a 24-hour preview of the sale. And the sale was, not only was it old stock watches, but it was returns. So I managed to snag a watch that had been returned, because they have that great 60-60 warranty where you can return it within 60 days. Yeah. So I managed to snag a watch that I'm going to wait until it arrives, and then I'll give a first impressions to make sure that it lives up to it. But nice. What an incredible sale that they did. And their watches, some of the best value Swiss watches you'll get.
Yeah, they're doing great.
Well, there's a little Christopher Ward plug. And a full disclosure, big fan of Christopher Ward and Mike France, who's been on the channel. I've had a bit of a watch obsession. I just watched a video on this from Watch Gecko, but I'm obsessed with this Chrono Master again, the Zenith. I won't call it the Zenith Daytona. It's a bit naughty to call it that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
I didn't realize this, Chris, but did you know that the chronograph function on this is not 60 seconds? It's a 10-second. It's 10-second revolution. So you see, it's got 10 at the top. That is a 10-second. So it goes once round in 10 seconds. I would just watched Watch Gecko and then Tim Masso and a few others really delve into the movement on this, and I'm blown away by it. Honestly, I think $10,000. It's definitely. I mean, it's certainly just laid out for that Rolex, so it'll be some time before I consider buying it. But that was that was my watch obsession, and real big fan of that. Once I started really looking into it, the Chronomaster, it looks like an incredible chronograph.
Yeah, I really like what Zenith has done in the last couple of years. I've seen a couple of their things in person, in hand. And I mean, it's just the quality is amazing, and I feel like it is if you're into watches, and Sam, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, we had a good conversation on Facebook that was just basically like, no one's gonna notice, like dear new watch people, no one's gonna point this out, and so. Much like our Tudor conversation, I feel like Zenith is definitely one of those brands that's the like cool watch nerd, watch geek kind of like. If I saw, okay, you're gonna like, yeah, you have a Rolex, okay, cool. But like, if you see Zenith, you're like, oh, did someone pick that out for you, or did you pick that out? And then you're like, oh yeah, you know what's going on. So
yeah, I'm amazed by what they've done with that Chronomaster. Reading more about it, which makes me think that I should read more about get back into the understanding more about the movements, because I know certainly so many watches coming in for review and stuff like that. I don't nearly need to go back to my roots of why I love mechanical watches in the first place, but. Anyway, let's. We've got one story to follow on after this, and it's not a very happy one for me, but and it's a bit of a joke one anyway. But before we do that, Chris, should we do? We're going the other way around. Normally we do hit and miss at the start, but should we do another thrilling episode of Hit or Miss?
Hit or miss, okay.
Hit or miss. On Hit or Miss is we like to poke fun at Hodinkee. And we still might do, but I wanted to get your view on their new collaboration with Unimatic. Now, Unimatic are Italian brand, very utilitarian watches. They previously used to use NH35 movements, which always put me off them a little bit, not because I don't think the NH35A is a fantastic movement, because it absolutely is. They were charging on the upper end of what you would pay for an NH35A watch. They were charging like Seiko prices for an NH35A, but they've bought this new collaboration out with Hodinkee, and they're using Sellita movements. So Chris, I know you've had a look at these. What do you think of them?
I want to say with Unimatic, so they are a bit of I'd almost call them a fashion brand. I mean, I don't know, or I'll reserve judgment. I don't know enough about the brand and sort of their history. I feel like it's very design focused, which is okay. That's okay. It's a watch. You can be design focused. But in that fashion sort of style, of a brand. It's just where my mind goes. It's where I sort of put them in that bucket. If I have that wrong, please go down in the comments and tell me I have that wrong. Wow, there you go. It's cool. Hey, we're out in the desert. Nice. Sorry. You had me at rally racing. So that's kind of my first take. Now, I knew a long time ago they had like Swiss movements in them, and then they changed over to NH35. There was one modder who I remember a video back in the day, kind of gave them some guff, because it's basically just like a simple plastic ring inside, and it wasn't the same sort of quality stuff that you'd get with Swiss. I know they've been stepping it up, so I feel like this is their stepping it up with Hodinkee and with going into Sellita movements and that sort of thing. I really like the look of the GMT that you pulled up right there. That's such a cool looking watch. I like the design for the aspect. So The price is a little high, but it's a dinky. So you can find them on eBay later, right? sorry, I can't resist. No, I say, yeah, it's a hit. I'll give it a hit. A reserved judgment hit.
I'm again gonna reserve judgment on this. I think that they've got Salita movements in them now, so that makes them in price competitive. I think the GMT that we just talked about, I think, is my favorite. Of course, they were limited edition, so it's a moot point. They sold out straight away.
A Swiss-made tool watch that has a Salita in it, and I'm thinking of Zin as a standard issue, like as a marker here. That's in the $1,200 range. That's perfect. So the pricing is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. So then we might as well finish up here with, and this isn't really a news story, I guess. I wish it wasn't news, but we've just been watching, my wife and I have been watching the Euro Cup finals, and England just lost out to Italy on penalties.
Boo.
But anyway, I think I just had to mention this because everyone was watching this ginormous Hublot countdown timer, and they've done a limited edition, 1,000 pieces, and Gareth Southgate, who was the manager of the England team, had one of these smart Hublot smartwatches on. So I just thought it was worth a mention, even though it's quite a sad day. I've never seen England get to a major final. I mean, of anything, the World Cup or the Euros or anything. So big props to them for actually getting to the finals. They were beaten by Italy. I don't know, Chris. What do you? I guess I should get your view on what you think of this Hublot smartwatch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious about the sales numbers of something like this. Like what is this? What is this doing compared to some of their other watches? You see it, and they'll have folks, celebrities, soccer, football players, wearing it on their wrists. But I'd be real curious to know what the sales numbers of these are. But
it's always, I know there's a couple of the grey market dealers, Nico and the Roman over at the grey market. They always have a little bit of a joke about Hublot. I guess my view on it is there's never been one that I just loved the look of it. I mean, I know certain people love it. It's just never a brand that I've ever seriously looked at. I mean, this Big Bang, I'm not really feeling it, to be honest. There's nothing that, and you've got to have a bit of cash to lay down even the entry level ones. So it's just never a brand that I've really. But I know that they've been tied in with football for a long time. I know Manchester United I don't know if they still do it, but for a long time, Hublot was like their watch partner, or certainly the players had a lot of Hublot on. But so I just thought I'd mention it. Congratulations to anyone in Italy that is watching. You guys beat us fair and square in the Euros, but there you go. Well, I think that's all that we've got today. Next week, I know we've had a couple of weeks where we've on the news show where we've done a bit of drama. Hopefully you enjoyed the Tudor one we had. If you've not watched that, check that out. We had Justin, who's a Rolex AD, giving his opinion on Tudor. Fascinating. Chris and I covered most of the models of Tudor, what we think of them. Check me out on SoCal Watch Reviews. I did a collaboration with them, and they will be coming on our show shortly as well.
Great.
Yep. As always, guys, we really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.